Good evening. It's Wednesday, 7:31. We are going to start with the pledge and go into our meeting.
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I should have said it's July 24th, right? So that people seeing this recorded will remember that. So we have announcements to my left, sir.
Yeah, just one quick announcement. Next Friday night, the 2nd of August, is the annual Ossining Fire Department Parade, which is combined with Westchester County to host the parade. So might be a couple extra units, but always a good time. Starts at 7 o'clock. It'll come down Croton Avenue from Campwood Road all the way down to the riverfront. So come out and watch a good time.
Starting time is
7 o'clock.
okay. Anybody else for announcements? Yeah,
Today I stopped by one of our new businesses,
right.
the Live Up Juice Bar on Spring Street. And it was delicious, and they have smoothies and cold pressed juices and acai bowls, and it's a welcome addition to our business community, and the owners are lovely. Their names are Josh and Tiara, and I highly recommend it.
Great. Some of us went to the riverfront last Friday for wonderful concerts, beautiful sunsets. I think there were really over 100 people that came over from Haverstraw on the ferry to also enjoy the events of the evening, from food trucks to brewery stuff to music to just walking around. So I put in the mayor's message. We have literally music in Ossining, I think Monday to Friday and some weekends. Most of them all of them are actually free, at least the ones I put up, to notify people. The county also has a bunch of stuff. Croton Park is a county park, so we participate in that too. You know, our hard-earned money goes to the county parks as well. So there are a lot of events going on there on the weekend and during the week. So let's enjoy the summer and stay safe and cool and dry, I guess. This is one of the rainy weeks. Last week was a very hot week. So let's enjoy all of that. And I think we're going to start with the meeting, village manager.
Good evening. We just have a slight change in agenda. We're going to start with a review of a planter proposal by the placemaking committee.
Okay.
And tonight we have Dana Andre here to present.
Oh, it's over here. Okay. You have to just wait like a second. And
There we go.
How are you?
Okay, good. How are you doing?
Good. You're
Good.
looking great.
Thank you.
That's because she runs marathons.
Yeah. Yeah, running New York City next, so. So we are here to discuss the planters for the five corner intersection. We came up with some designs that we submitted, and plant selections, planters, that sort of thing, that we thought would work nicely for the intersection, starting off with just two of the corners. And in time, hopefully we could do all 5 corners if we can. The planters are from a site called E-Planters. They're round, which kind of gives a nice sort of smooth sort of feel to them. We chose some different colors, but sort of natural colors to go with, just so that the colors would play off of a lot of the buildings in that area, but in a nice way, not too like they have like really like neonish colors also, but we didn't go there with that, but we chose some nice natural colors that would work and make them pop. The plant material that we chose we chose, and again, the plants are always subject, they can change, but keeping in mind sustainability, things that were pollinator friendly, plants that would offer, all year sort of interest, rather than just strictly annuals where you plant them, they flower, frost hits, and they're gone. We use things like grasses, hydrangeas, where when the plant's not green, it still has like some plumes, it has dried flowers, and you leave those things, and it's good for, the insects, and even for just overall winter interests, things with berries that you can have in there. You could add some pine greens to it or whatever to make it a little bit more exciting in the winter months. But I really, when I selected some of the plant material, used my horticulture background just to kind of think of like, if I was walking down on these corners, what would I want to see? What would work good in the planters? As far as the sizing, all of that sort of stuff. Also keeping in mind too, that like, as things grow, as things maybe outgrow or need dividing, these plant materials could be taken and moved to another location and given more life. So not just thinking about the one-time life in the planters, but like the perennial needs to be divided. So we have this space somewhere else downtown or somewhere in the village, we can build with that. What else?
What's the total price to do all 5 was what? Can you enlarge that, Maddie?
11,000.
Yeah, okay. Nah, plus the plants, right?
Yeah, I think that price included the plants.
Okay,
And it's an estimate,
Yeah, yeah.
plants, it depends on, I think when I did the judgment for the numbers, I used a retail price because I didn't know, as far as the village, how the pricing,
okay,
like wholesale versus retail.
great. So Dana, you're the liaison to the placemaking, anything to add to this?
How many planters are in this particular proposal?
I think this was 7 planters. I think it says in
Okay,
this one. So we were thinking about the 2 corners by the hair salon and then the deli.
right.
With the options of jumping across the street and doing by Market Square and the by the Christmas tree or the holiday tree.
Well, the idea was that we have, when we did the 5 corners and we did the bump outs, we have these kind of lots of concrete to fill up. And, one thing our downtown has is beautiful architectural buildings. But it just still feels like some pops of color would be nice. So these planters would not only provide that, but they would also provide additional greenery and visual interest. And the round shape kind of contrasts with the verticality of the buildings themselves, which tend to be brick and beige. And I think the colors that are here in the schematic, I think Jeff did, right? This was 3 people on the placemaking committee focused on this. It was Dana, it was Stella Ebner, who's our artist, and then Jeff, our chair. The way to bring kind of a sculptural and visual interest to the downtown and give it just that, to fill in some of the space and give it that kind of visual pop of color.
Great. Folks to my left, questions, comments?
Yeah, just, I love the idea. I
Thank
think
you.
it's great. You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Just at the end, just a cost of additional plant. You're just talking about where there's planting area now, right? Maybe throwing some additional stuff in there.
Right. So those, like those 2 corners there that we showed, but also across the street, if we could, if not with this initial, but in the future, adding to those areas and adding a few more planters.
All right, I like it. It gives us options at the holiday season too, to do something different.
Yes.
All right, and show off the 5 corners. I am personally in favor of doing the whole job and not doing it halfway, so.
I just want to caveat one thing. So on where the bump outs are, there's plenty of room. We might have to see what the actual planters like on the opposite side of the street. You don't have quite as much room and we just have to make sure we keep the sidewalks accessible. But we can, I talked to Paul about this, so depending on how we lay them out and stuff will work. And obviously accessibility will be a priority as well.
Right, and as far as purchasing, your purchasing power, maybe we can hook up with someone that's a vendor with the village that can get us, contractor prices.
Yeah, and I know in my past, I've used this company and they do like sort of a wholesale account type thing. So I don't know, again, like with the village, how that works, but yeah, definitely.
No,
I think
I
it'd be
think
great.
it's a great idea and
Thank you.
I'd like to see the whole thing done. The whole thing's done now, 5 corners, the whole thing should look complete.
Thank
That's
you.
my opinion. Thank you.
Manny?
You.
Um,
Reminds me a little bit of the city, New York City, Times Square area where they have bring some landscape into the streets, which is pretty interesting too. I agree with a lot of the stuff that you have said. I'm gonna disagree with Bob on that one a little bit. The reason why I'm saying that, not that I think it's a great idea, but I think it'll be helpful for us to understand what is going to be happening in Market Square itself in the
Mhm.
next few years. So if that's something that either we're doing now and we utilize those pieces to the overall design that could be happening in there, and the same thing that's going to happen in a few years. Again, we're talking about a few years from now, hopefully less, on across the street where the Christmas tree is, more or
Right.
less. I think that will be the balance for me.
Okay.
In relationship to the money, I'm not gonna ask you that question, but I am gonna ask Karen that question. Is that something that we can utilize the money that we do have allocated for the downtown itself instead of getting that money from our budget?
I would think so, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that will restrict the utilization of these planters anywhere else in the village. That doesn't mean that we cannot purchase or the board cannot finance in other areas where it's not the downtown itself. So I love the idea. It's pretty interesting, but for me right now, it will be just those 2 corners.
Mhm.
Unless the overall plan is to utilize the other 2 corners with the planters itself, because just keep in mind the design of the building still a concept, but it's not really set in stone. And I think that will affect the overall project at the end of the day. So that's just my opinion, but it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Omar?
Welcome.
Thank
And thanks for the presentation. I echo my colleague's support. And in terms of the 5 corners, 2 or 3 corners debate that has gone on, I'm siding with my colleague trustee Casada to start with it as you currently have it sketched out. The question that I have is around longevity. Do you have a sense of how long these planters are kind of designed to exist?
So they are made with fiberglass, and as long as like people are respective of them, don't try to, given that they're also round, people can't skateboard on them, but cars don't crash into them. That sort of thing. They have, fiberglass tends to have a pretty decent, lifespan. Where I work, we've had fiberglass planters for at least 15 years, but again, it all depends on how they're treated, snow time, nothing's ramming into it, or, like that sort of stuff, just, I know it sounds silly to say that, but those are the realities. So in that sense, they work. As far as the color, on them, I don't know as far as like, how the color is applied to them, if it's mixed in with the fiberglass or if it's a painted on type thing. So that might be the only thing that may in time sort of deteriorate. Plant material, again, like set it up so that these are plants mostly, with the exception of a few annuals, these are plants that could be alternatively moved to another space to have a fuller life. But they will overwinter in the planters. Shrubs that would give you multi-season interest, winter interest, the perennials, that sort of thing. So I think, as long as they have the right conditions and they're happy, they're healthy, they'll survive. And then as they get older, and bigger and kind of outgrow that space, looking to either divide them or add something new and different.
No, thank
So,
you. That makes
you're
sense.
welcome.
The other question that I have, you may not be able to answer, it may be more for the village manager or my colleagues, but is around dedication. Sometimes we have certain trees or certain benches or certain things where people dedicate that particular item for a person. I'm trying to remember if we have a process for that, or if that's something that we just gotta wait for someone to say, hey, I want to dedicate one of these planters for my mom. Can I do that? What's the process? Any thoughts?
We have dedicated benches and things like that. You could do that, but that usually involves a plaque and other things, which may or may not. Anything's doable. I don't know with the number that you have there. It's sort of limited, so I'm not sure that it's as appropriate as some of the other things, trees, benches, tree wells, which lend themselves to be dedicated all throughout the village. So that would just be,
And
my
people
initial
pay for
reaction.
that.
People pay for that,
Yeah.
yeah. But I name it
Yeah.
both, it is a consideration that
But-
people would pay some money for it, but also to try to get ahead of it. So that we say, in case anyone has the idea of wanting to dedicate, we've kind of already come to the conclusion that's not something we're gonna do at this point, or we are, and
Right.
what kind of process we wanna have for that.
So the the board that manages the community center spent 2 years figuring out how to dedicate benches, rocks, fences, fields. It was like a 2-year project that they spend. And they've created a list and pricing, and it changes. We've done some trees usually done by the board, not by individuals, anymore. And street signs also a process. So I would say anything that doesn't have a process in place isn't getting done. It should be done as first the process and then not willy-nilly. Because I'm telling you, I sat on that committee 2 years to figure out and also take inventory, because people were just putting stuff out there that the village didn't even know, was out there. And they have to be maintained, so think about, you put names on things and the wind takes it with, then they have to be maintained. So I would say if it's not listed as something we do, we shouldn't be doing.
I think there are plenty of other opportunities.
So many, so
Um,
many.
We can be agnostic in this case with our planters and
Yeah.
let them just be themselves.
Be there. Do you have any more questions?
That's it for me, thank you.
So
you.
thank you for coming. I put an agenda. So everybody asked all the questions that I would have asked, and I appreciate the work, and thank you for being here on short notice, because I know your chairs are at a different meeting. Everybody's busy. Busy people always are even busier. But with the placemaking committee, this is a recommendation from that committee. It's one of many ideas that was presented to board, when that we said, yeah, this is great. And now you come back with the details that we can move forward. Any thoughts on who's managing all of the plant stuff? And I'm not suggesting who should do it. I'm simply asking if thought was given. Is the village expected to maintain all of this, or is the committee setting up a couple of people? Like in some villages and towns, there's people that manage this. Is it just here's a,
Break out the trowel, how about you?
so, or is this?
Every time I will gladly,
No, seriously, because
But-
I think the village manager needs to know, because it actually will affect what you put in. So I don't like annuals. To me, they're pretty but useless. You can make them all into pollinator, little miniature pollinator gardens, but
yeah.
is your vision that there'll be somebody in committee taking care of all this, or you're leaving it, you're suggesting the initial, you'll move on to the next project and you'll help, but the village should maintain it? as Dana just said, agnostic. I just want to know if there's a recommendation from the committee on that.
You know, I don't know that we necessarily had a recommendation.
Okay.
I don't mind, and I probably think, and I shouldn't speak for the committee as a whole, but like, I don't mind going out there and planting them. As far as watering, I mean, I was thinking probably when they do their.
Well, not the
they do
watering, but
watering,
the maintenance
but-
over time. So some
Yeah.
communities have garden committees and things like that. So-
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I wouldn't be afraid to do personally.
Okay, but it's not something you guys said, hey, will the place making.
We didn't talk about that part.
Okay,
no. Not
that's
that I'm
fair.
aware of. No.
That's fine. So it's just a
Okay.
question mark, really.
It's certainly not a whole ton of work, I
Right.
don't think.
No.
So I really like this. I saw the first initial, which I thought came to a lot of money, more than I had actually envisioned. I think it's good to do two corners. I appreciate trustee Fritchie's point of let's do all of them. I'm not even sure you can do all of them. When you go through space and you look at handicap and how you manage the traffic, you might be able to. I actually like doing pilots. So I like trying things out, making sure that, people do not damage them or skateboard on them, as I lovingly, as you said, or graffiti them or whatever. I also think it's a good lesson, like, let's try it out for a while. And, so we're not really arguing about the money. We're more like, let's do it in some meaningful size. I was talking to a village manager earlier, there's like upwards on 133. There's also some areas that might be like, if this works out, maybe we should take a different version of it, same colors, and maybe look to like what is that called? Roosevelt Island? What is that where Wells Fargo is? Roosevelt Square.
That's
You
over
know,
here where I live.
maybe try that. Maybe the pilot should be, let's see how this works. And then that's
Yeah.
definitely the center of the downtown, but maybe we could take it somewhere else or not, or maybe this should represent the center. So I'm would like to play a little bit before we do it, and this will give us that flexibility. So I'm hearing a yes from everybody on the presentation of two corners, three planters on each. Is that about right?
3 or 4. It's 7
So a
in
total of 7. Thank
Yeah.
you. I think the colors are fine. Like your guess at a color is as good as our guess at a color. I'm not like, I don't think the 5 of us are experts. And I have sat in meetings for hours about a color. Don't want to do it about this. I totally get the logic here, and I know
I
you have
think the
you have
colors we had in
expertise.
mind weren't as neon as some of the ones in the like.
I've actually seen the neon, like
Well,
neon blue is a
we
very
could.
big color right now.
In the,
No, I like
the
these
one
colors.
picture that we had, it was showed like a lot of the neons, sort of like.
No, I
Yeah.
like these colors. I think everybody here is like as good as
And they'll play
anything.
good
It's
with
fine.
the colors of the
Of
flowers
of all
too.
of that stuff. So I think this is basically, I guess, to this size, trying it out, making sure Paul is okay with the placement for, we created a bump outs for safer crossing and to actually make people cross, not just jump off the curb. We don't want to now fill it with stuff so that, a person who's handicapped can't get through so we'll let the village staff figure that out, and you
Perfect.
guys can go out there and say, oh, we had this in mind or that in mind. You have pictures, so that should be easy. So I think this is a move forward kind of project, and I think from the fund away, Manny had mentioned that is where I think it should come. It's definitely a downtown. This has been discussed before, this kind of thing, so it makes sense.
Can I just ask one logistical, well, sort of operational question? We haven't really had a chance to explore what municipal resources we have for things like this, but we absolutely do. Is this a specific brand type that is committed to, or would you want to work with us and maybe look at things just based on durability, price, color, things like that would approximate a similar size use?
Yeah, I mean, I think we pulled this planner off of the ePlanner website. It was a site that I've used
Okay.
before for other projects. And I had said, oh, take a look at this. They have a lot of different options. And they're able to work with other
Right.
entities, that sort of thing, set up accounts. So I was familiar with them. And so, because otherwise I feel like sometimes you can, when you start searching on the web, it's like
Endless.
you're endlessly like for hours searching. So I said, let's look here and see,
Are you use e-planners for Battery Park City? When you
Yeah.
need planners?
yeah.
Okay.
So we've used them before and
Okay.
yeah, but
That
I
should
mean,
be fine.
I think we're open to it if there's another resource that, the village has, or,
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I just wanted to,
yeah. I definitely think so, though.
okay.
So the
Yeah.
way this would work going forward is, it's not the village and the committee works for the board. And so this is like one project, done. It now goes to the staff, they'll ask you questions, I just wanna like
Okay.
sort of. Committees are funny things, they're similar, but they're all different, so this is the project present board, the board and concept went with it, it now sits with the village manager to get it done. Karen, I see no reason not to get this done, what, by the fall, I mean, unless
Well,
you're telling me that's
well,
crazy. Depends how long it takes to order it.
It's, we can, Paul's back next week, and so we'll
Okay.
talk, and then maybe Dana, we could just sit down and sort of
Right.
go over, and then I'll make sure I'd like to look at some of the resources we have and see if we want to use, just for price comparison, we typically would
Definitely.
bid for something we would
Oh,
bid
the
it out,
price?
so like we'd have to get
Competitive
comparable
bids.
prices, so competitive bidding on it. That said, I'm sure we have resources that would give us similar, similar type of things for a similar experience. The planting, I would imagine you probably have more expertise than I do, that we'd want to do that in the early fall because it's pretty much too hot to do it now. So
Probably September.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
mid-September.
So they'll come back to
ordering
you for
even
that.
Plant material now. Again, I don't know who you guys use and
so
whatnot,
we could
but
get started because it does take a little bit of time to get the bids to order the things. I don't know if these are stock items or they're special order, and that will dictate when we can get them, but we could probably plant into October if we had to. So I think we'll
Alright.
be okay.
And then
Perfect.
when you do October, you're also gonna do December for the winter and the holiday. I mean, you'll do them simultaneously because you have to set it up.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we miss
know,
the boat.
Yeah, the worst case scenario, if they get in late, we'll sort of do a little winter
Right.
display and
You
then
can
plant. in the
zhuzh 'em
spring.
up for the
We will zhuzh 'em
holidays.
up.
Yeah,
yeah.
so good. Thank you.
Perfect,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
coming. Thank you for presenting on behalf of the committee. And now we leave it with the village staff to make it happen.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to more exciting projects from you guys. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks for
great
coming.
night.
You're welcome to
Thank you
stay.
for fitting me in first. I appreciate that.
And if you want to stay for the remainder of the meeting, we always encourage, but we don't force.
As much as I would love to, I haven't had dinner yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
So our next topic, we have, Ahmed and Robert Stanziale here, to discuss a proposal that they have for 209, 215 Main Street. So I'd like to, gentlemen, if you'd like to take a seat and, we can go through your proposal. Yeah, you just have to push it up so the green light's on.
Hi, I'm Ahmad Chalabi, ZSA Main Street.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't have the right name there, so.
Good evening, Mayor Trustees, Bob Stanziale, architect for the project. This is at 209, 215 Main Street. This is something I think came before you once before with the previous owner for I think in a work session as well. Ahmad recently picked up this property to go forward pretty much with the same project that I think you may have seen once before, but I'll go through it. What we're proposing here is a three-story building from Main Street, sort of mixed-use building of 22 residential apartments total on the property.
How many?
22, 16, I'm sorry, I said 20, I think it's parking space. 16 residential apartments. The ground floor on Main Street would be a 2,100 commercial, 2,100 square foot commercial space. The apartments would be accessible from the first floor as well as the retail space on the ground floor. We have a lower level in the space that drops off significantly, and that's pretty much where one of the reasons why we're here today is that we looking to have a parking level on our lowest level. I don't know if Maddie has them on the plans here. The lowest level, if we pull it up here, and next one, I think, Maddie, yeah. There it is. So our parking that we need for the building would be located in the lowest level, as I mentioned. But we're looking to access the parking level from the municipal lot that's behind us. So that's really what we would need. One of the things we would need, or the main thing we would need, to approval that we would need from you folks, of course, to access the municipal lot to go into this parking area for the building, which is key, obviously, to the creation of the structure. So on the front elevation, it's going to be an attractive building. We're going to do whatever we can to create all the, it's going to be a brick building. It's an historic district, obviously, so we're going to be very sensitive to all the important details that we need to create on here with respect to matching other historic buildings. We have one right next to us, obviously, on the right-hand side. That's quite an old building. I think Ahmad pointed out to me today, it's 224 years old. Okay. So we'll match some details on that.
I don't, is that even?
The Midas building, is it that old? Is it 19? Okay. All right.
Can you put that picture up again, the drawing? You know, it's weird. It does not, thank you, Maddie. Back to the first one.
The rendering, yeah.
So
Yeah.
this doesn't, that's not actually what it looks like. And I know it's a rendering, but you've got the Midas building, you've got the triangular empty thing with the fence.
It's a little skewed there, right? Yeah.
It's a lot skewed.
Yeah.
So which is your building? Because the thing on the left, as soon as you turn the corner, that's already there. Like, what are we talking about here? Actually, we're talking.
Yeah, we're looking
about-
at that facade that's right in front of us. There's some, yeah.
The thing to the left is there's a
between the-
building there.
Between the Midas building and the white.
Yeah, it's sort of distorted, and the building on the left is sort of
Is there.
showing it at an odd angle, but yeah.
Okay,
we're-
so you're only talking about
Yeah.
the building, whatever that clock thing is to the right of that, aren't you?
No, no.
No, but that's not what it looks like.
I'm gonna bring up Google Maps Street View. Give me just 1 second.
Okay,
It would be both sides of the clock. The clock is.
Both sides of the clock. The clock is,
I know you're showing it that way. I don't
clock
think
is
that's actually
start-
the way it looks.
the clock is the center of the building. Yeah.
And what else do you own, sir? Besides this building?
105, 107 Crown Avenue.
105, 107?
So I developed that between 2012 and 2014.
No, that's the same rendering, but
Yeah.
I don't think in real life that's
No, no,
actually what that
it's-
whole thing
it's-
looks
it's-
like. It's totally, I mean, the renderings make it look very spacious, but it's not. So in that empty space is what we're talking about. It's also
Correct.
curved and it's not in your rendering. In your rendering, the whole thing is straight in a right angle off to Main Street. That's not actually the way the property looks. So you're talking about that space only.
Yeah, but I mean, the building to the left does skew off sharply. You know, our building is going to be perpendicular to
To that,
Main Street,
okay,
so it's
okay,
a little off, but I mean, it's not too far off.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the Midas building and the white building, they're not.
I know what
See
it
this?
is.
So that's the property line itself. So what they're doing is squaring it all.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
The renderings always make things look bigger and,
Yeah.
and then the public sees that and thinks something very different is being put up there. I mean, I like the number of units at least, which is a little less crazy than some of the other presentations. And it does look like it would fit. There would be retail behind that glass? Is
Yes,
that
on the
what that
ground
is?
floor, correct. Yes.
To
Mhm.
continue that look? Okay.
Correct, right.
All right, sorry
Yeah.
for interrupting. I just wanted to
No,
get
it's
some
okay. No,
clarification.
yeah.
I understand that sidewalk.
correct
and
that, make it
all
look
of
a little
that
better.
is, you know,
Make it look
rendering.
a little more realistic.
Okay, so the only other thing you own in Austining is 105, 107?
Yes.
Okay,
Is that the prescription?
There's-
So again, in order to, our main concern is being able to access the parking area from the municipal lot in the back. So the access to it, it's really off of, not actually off the parking area, but actually off a driveway that comes, that loops around off of the municipal lot. So it would be off of that driveway. We'd have to, put some retaining wall in there, so to obviously to make some improvements, do some additional landscaping. And we'd have to lower this level of the basement level quite a bit in order to keep it low, in order to make just a sort of a minimal pitch or a 5% pitch from the parking lot into our our parking level, but it could work.
Market rate units?
14 would be market rate and 2 would be affordable.
Because they still have to meet 10%. So it's not, when you say need and all that, it's that we have to make exceptions to what we currently have because you're going to be using village property to get onto this, correct? And you're
Correct.
digging down.
That's correct.
Karen, has anybody looked to see what's underneath there? Because after the recent experiences with people digging down and buildings falling, I'm just curious as to what's underneath there. Does anybody know?
I'd have to check with Paul, but you know, right now, like I know like we're dealing with water main issue, you know, a water main under the other lot. So I don't know exactly. I couldn't tell you, but
Right.
you know, there is rock. Austin's
we
pretty
know.
rocky.
Yes.
So you know, those are
Mhm.
things that have to be considered, but so I really can't answer that
Okay.
question.
And how many parking spaces are being provided here?
27 parking spaces.
So we're not looking for any variance for the park. We're looking to follow the village code and provide all the parking as per village code. The access through the front on Main Street wouldn't be possible because the village code wants the buildings to be side by side. So that's why the parking would have to come from the back.
But to get to the parking, you need to go through village. That's where you need.
Correct.
Makes
Yes.
sense.
Yep.
If I could jump in and just sort of add some context to this, I apologize.
Sure.
So I think as Mr. Stanziel said, you know, we saw a very similar presentation in September of last year from the prior owner. I don't believe very much has changed at all. Basically, the board is being consulted at this point because of the required access from the parking
Right.
lot. They still would need to go through the formal land use process through planning to zoning for any variances that may crop up along the way. This is just basically, you know, getting the board's temperature for whether, you know, access through the parking lot was something that would be considered.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, we can do whatever exploration is necessary in that piece of land to see what is actually in there with respect to utilities or things of that nature. So, obviously.
Is this, can I ask you about the design? It's the same design as the previous owner? So it's your design, it's still your design.
It is, yes. We made some interior modifications, but other than that.
Did it go through the planning process?
No,
yet?
we haven't gotten, never
Mhm.
went past this stage.
Yeah, just because you know, this is a very highly visible spot.
Sure.
And, you know, the idea of a clock tower and everything is okay, but you know, maybe we don't want a clock tower there.
We actually we took the clock out.
Oh, you
Yes,
took
we
the
did-
clock
We
out.
did make that change. It's still under rendering, which we have to
We
revise.
recognize.
But look at the elevations. We have to update the rendering. I apologize for that. It's even a different name now. We don't have a name yet, but anyway. But on the elevations that we did take the clock out.
Oh, you did, okay.
Ahmad didn't care for the clock. We said, okay.
Yeah.
It
So,
was the other developer's concept. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And our lawyer wrote the letter that's on the agenda. He's here in case you need to talk to him.
Thank you. Okay, is that your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how many retail spots is that?
Looking at really one spot right now, it's 2,100 square feet.
So how many parking spaces for that? And loading dock?
That's six
Six
parking
spaces.
spaces.
Is that included in your 27 parking spaces?
Yes,
Yes.
so
So 6 for a retail space of 2,100 square feet. Loading dock?
I don't think loading space is required for this size under the zoning. Double check, but I don't believe so.
Okay. You don't know, okay. Because you can't just pull up with a UPS truck or some delivery thing on that corner because that's really dangerous. So you'd have to go somewhere else to do that.
Back, I guess.
But they're sort of, the back is the narrow part of that. That's the tricky part of that whole thing. So when they said 27 parking, they didn't mean 27 parking for 16 units. They meant 27
Total,
parking,
yeah.
including retail. If
Correct.
you have 3 employees, that's 3 cars just for employees before you even start the math. You have to have handicap, but for both residential and commercial, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so these are just some things. It looks like it fits. It's a more reasonable number than we've heard in the past. Some crazy numbers. This still doesn't seem crazy to me, so it's within a reason. So I'm gonna just start from my left. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, just. Stuart, will we need some sort of agreement with the, going through the village lot?
Yes, you need an easement agreement.
Easement agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
all I have.
Questions, comments?
Thank you for coming over. I guess my recollection from the last year's presentation, it was a little bit one of the questions that we had, and I guess I see other municipalities are doing the same thing. Is the double stacking for parking, because that's the only way for you to accomplish what you're looking for at this point. If not, you won't be able to get that, and you will have to go for variance or some waivers, sort of that nature. So the concern that we had at that time, it was like, how do you control, the control of these lifts? If you coming in, you don't want to bring it down, you have to park, or you just want to go and you be utilizing the municipal parking area, which is not dedicated for residents or even in the commercial space. So that was one of the things that my recollection was one of the questions and concerns that I had. I think in concept, I'm okay with that, because without us giving you the access, you won't be able to accomplish what you're trying to do. Right. My recollection as well from last presentation was, will that be affecting any parking spaces or any circulation in our parking area as well? And I don't see that being reflected in your site plan in here, because you only have a portion of that. So my concern will be, how does that circulation affect our parking area?
Well, the circulation is all internal.
Mhm.
Within the garage, there's enough backup space.
I understand that. I'm
yeah.
talking about our parking.
Oh,
Our parking lot itself. Because
If I could. Sorry, trustee. I
Yeah, go
was,
ahead.
when we went through this last time, I know the village engineer was able to join and did provide the board with his comments. We haven't heard from him on this, but since it looks largely the same, I'll just sort of refresh the board on what his concerns were. One was to make sure that there's no disturbance to parking in that lot for as much as possible during the construction period. One was that we don't lose any spaces as a result of needing to grant this access, whether that means the developer would need to pay to have it restriped, restructured, what have you. And then also some of the ADA connections around the site, making sure that it connects to the sidewalk. Those were the sort of caveats that Paul had encouraged the board to consider when looking at this.
Thank you, Maddie. So yeah, so those in a way still stand. Sure, a lot of the stuff, for us to even to consider an agreement, we want to make sure that those are taken into consideration. How does that being accomplished? One of the things that I've been hearing a lot, and I know it's not in our purview, at least on this level, is that because I've seen that in a lot of developments that has happened, even in one of the newest ones in downtown within the last 10 years, is trash. I don't see on your site plan, or at least in the garage level, I see parking spaces, but I don't see locations for trash. So, and I believe that was at, I don't know, I'll have to go back to the September last year to look at it, because I'm pretty sure we did bring that up, but I could be totally mistaken on that one. But I didn't see that unless I miss.
There's a space for.
There is a
that.
space.
trash.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's if you look, it's in the basement on the right side of the.
Yeah, we have a compactor room in there.
So you have the water
Yeah,
meter.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah, oh, so it's not in that area. Oh, so you're talking about the compactor room right behind the elevator area?
Correct. There would be
Okay.
trash chutes that would go down into the compactor room. So, yes.
So
Yeah.
now how does
Recycle.
that,
Yeah.
so how does that, I'm assuming you're gonna get a container at some point, or that's gonna be able, how does the trash be?
Well, the trash generally,
being
if it's
picked
in a
up?
compactor, those
Yeah.
are just generally picked up by a pickup truck. Generally
Okay.
something small that picks up, that would also
Okay.
access the garage.
The garage.
and it'll take it.
Okay.
So it's just.
Okay,
Right. And the access to the parking lot again itself from the municipal lot is via an existing access driveway that comes around. Maddie, you just did, okay. It's just, it's from that behind the island, you can see on that municipal lot, so it's not, it doesn't face any of the existing parking spaces that are in the municipal lot itself currently, so it's out of the traffic aisles
Yeah, so
per
that,
se, so. yeah.
drawing doesn't show this, the lot, the spaces,
Mhm.
parking spaces,
Yeah.
but the access wouldn't block any, it
Okay.
wouldn't block or take.
Or
away
we're
any
taking
space.
away from that stuff.
I'll-
Okay.
I'll elaborate on that, so sure that works.
Yeah, it'll be helpful for us to understand that a little bit better.
Absolutely.
What does that look like? The
And
other-
so if you look at that, those spaces are pointed right and pointed left, but they're
Yeah.
not, none of them are pointed down.
Yeah, so again, I think without seeing the parking spaces, because as soon as you get out of there, you're gonna make a more or less a right turn. And if we have parking spaces in that space where we have access to municipal lot, the letters itself, the level itself.
Right, right.
You know, if we do have parking spaces in there,
No, of
it's gonna
course.
be a hard turn.
Yep.
You know, more
Right.
like an impossible turn to make
Yep,
it, you know.
understood.
So
Yep.
that's what I think if we sort of select that, it will be
Mm-hmm.
helpful for us. The other thing that I usually I'm gonna ask you to look into it, and I guess you probably did, and maybe Stuart, you can help me, or Maddie, you can help me with this. What is the typical parking space on for the buildings that we typically use for spaces like this? Is it
9 size wise, 9 by 18.
now, is that 9 by 18? Because in other municipalities, we don't have anything in our code that gives it, I thought we had something.
I believe we do, but I don't know off the top of my head what that measurement is.
We definitely have the measurements in the code.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
for
thought it
some
was 10
reason-
by 18.
Is it 10 by 18? For some
9
reason,
by
like
18.
9 by, for some reason, I thought it was 20 instead of 18. I could
I'd have
be,
to check.
yeah.
course,
So if
that's
that's the
more.
case, I'm sure, I'm sure you made the calculation, so hopefully
Yep.
it's up to code. If not, again, you have to adjust that and it won't be.
Yeah, no, I mean, with respect to the parking lot itself, the spaces are all 9 by 18. We have 24-foot backup, which is
Mhm.
required by code. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Again, right now you're asking for the access, it really is irrelevant to how the building looks like, 'cause that will be the architectural review board from me.
Yeah, the planning
Um,
board. of
yeah, and the
course,
planning board.
obviously, yeah,
So,
right.
Even though I have a lot of thoughts about the facade, I'm not gonna concentrate on that.
Right.
So in concept, I would like to see a little bit more information than that. How do we address all those issues that I just brought
Circulation
up?
of the lot,
Yeah, yeah,
Sure, certainly.
exactly.
Yep.
So besides that, I don't have any questions, additional questions right now. So I may have some more,
Appreciate it.
no, right now. Thank you.
Okay, so Stuart, what are we being asked to do here tonight with this?
For you, I'm assuming what the applicant is looking for is a sense from the board if they would be amenable to potentially easement agreement with the applicant. Because if he can't get that access, there would be no sense for him to go to the planning board. Apparently, they've said they don't need variances, so let's just talk about land use board. So I think the sense would have to be from this board as to what you would want to do. If you have an interest in doing that. It does involve village property, so we can also have an executive session discussion on that if we
Okay.
wanted to. But that I think is what, if I'm understanding, that's really what the applicant would want to know. So before he goes
Right.
the next step.
So on the 16 units, could you delve a little bit into the size of the units, please?
Square footage.
No, bedrooms.
Oh, bedrooms, yeah, there are, my analysis here.
I believe there are 9 2-bedrooms and
Yeah.
7 1-bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. 9 2-bedrooms, right, 7 1-bedroom.
Say it again?
9 2-bedroom units, 7 1-bedroom units.
So 9 2-bedrooms, 16. Close. Okay. There is no street parking for this. Like you use in your other building and your tenants are all over the place. That there's not gonna be a handicap on the street because that curve is a main throughway. So just so we're clear that the parking, and did you look at the most recent code for the parking? I know you're saying yes, but I'm asking him
I
because
have,
we
yes.
changed it recently, right?
For parking ratios, I have, yes. Yep.
Go ahead.
So does this district fall under the new modifications that we did? So I'm pretty sure they do.
This
It's very
district
recent.
would, because this
Yeah.
is VC.
I'll double check.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure, so I
Yeah.
think the answer is yes.
Okay. Yeah, so double check because we changed the ratio this few months ago.
All right. Okie dokie. So, fine. So we're just being asked, and we can discuss an exec session because it's village property.
Correct.
Makes it easier. I just don't know how I feel about it personally. I'm one vote, so. It's certainly better than what we've seen. Like, it's finally at a place that's, I think, palatable. I think the retail space is very tricky. I think loading zones, deliveries in that spot is super tricky. The back areas already, the easements that we've done, the very few that we've done, not really abiding by what they're supposed to do and are blocking up, and there's really a lot of garbage developed by the tenants. Sort of nice that you own like something else, because then, you know, you're, I think, more local. You still live in Briarcliff?
I do.
So I mean, you're local, because some of the investors or landlords are not local, so that's a good thing, because you're local, you know. Okay, so we'll discuss, we'll get back to you.
Just like,
Oh, I'm sorry, because I
Well,
thought you
I-
guys
I
already
thought I
asked.
knew that.
No, I'm sorry. No, I apologize. Go ahead.
All right, you go.
Well, I appreciate the presentation. Thank you. My general sentiment is positive toward wanting to move forward with this, either this project specifically or this kind of project. I think that the nature of the situation is either it's something like this or something similar, right? So the question in front of us is, would we be comfortable with finding some sort of easement situation that would make building here amenable? And to me, the answer is yes, I am amenable to that. There's lots of questions and, but I don't think those are relevant for tonight in terms of the one on the table. That's how I'm feeling. Right.
Dana?
I agree that if something's gonna be built there, there's no choice but to have the rear access for cars. You know, I too would personally like to see more options for the facade design. You know, more thought about its position in the community and its aesthetic value. But I'm not, you know, I certainly, you know, something, if anything's ever going to be built in those lots, then you have to start somewhere, right? So, I mean, I'm also open to the idea of an easement.
Thank you. I forgot because you told about the clock tower, so my head was like, oh, that's site already. Thank you. Okay, any questions for us?
no, I appreciate it. I mean, I think it's been said, it's. When we come before you, is obviously we need your help in many ways. But, you know, from an urban planning standpoint, it's an empty lot that needs to be filled with something and.
From an urban planning point of view?
Yeah.
It would have been better to just say thank you, because now I'm gonna tell you
Okay.
that that's not at all true.
No.
There's plenty
Yeah.
of green space that this community would like to have. Nobody in this community, except developers, seem to feel we have to fill every single square inch. It's something I say every other meeting. So I'm just gonna make believe that we're still talking just because this gentleman owns property and you guys came up with a really good plan. The idea that we have to develop every square foot is really, I didn't go to urban planning school, but I would say that if I ever did, I would say,
did.
you don't really, I understand that you did. You don't really need to do that. What is true is exactly what Dana White said, which is it's the entrance of the downtown.
Right.
Highly visible on a state road, lots of traffic, lots of people, lots of visibility. We want it to look good because it is a big deal. We would like to do something. It's exactly what everybody said the same thing, which is we'd like the right thing in there, but the idea that if it sits empty, that's a bad thing is not a bad thing at all. Not from my perspective, from my one vote, but this is a much better plan than we've seen in a very long time. And so, I think that's why the board is sitting here going, you know, this feels better than what we've seen for who knows how long. And it seems like there was an effort to make it work with the other buildings. Now we have to also think about that particular spot and the amount of cars and humans
No.
that go
understood.
through
No,
there and the amount of garbage that
It's gonna be there. It has to work.
is so
Like that.
visible there and using a municipal lot and blocking that up or not blocking it up is a big deal because that lot not only gets used by those other businesses, the residents that now live there, but people in the community center as well, right? So all of those things is what we think about. So I appreciate it. Is there any other
I
thing
would
that we
think
need to
that,
know?
So, you know, nothing, I have nothing opposed to green spaces.
Mhm,
But I would call this a brown space.
mhm.
So I personally have cleaned this lot for the past 2 months and I've had 30 large bags of garbage,
Mhm.
a bed frame, CRT TV, 3 bicycles, a shopping cart, um, 2 walkers, 2 scooters, and countless bottles and cans and just 2 coolers. So it's not green, it's a dumping ground. And I would really like to clean it up. And so, you know,
When
I-
did you buy it? It's your property, right? When did you buy
April
it?
30,
Okay, so it's your property.
part of the
Okay.
group, yes.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh. Are you an investor group or a development group?
I don't know how to qualify it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I have 105, 107 by myself, but. I
Yeah, that's
got
what I
partners.
thought.
I got partners for this one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Great. Do we have the names of all the partners in this?
You don't, if you need them, I can
I
provide.
don't at this time, but now with the recently enacted change to the code, the answer is that will all be provided as part of the
Right.
planning board application.
Yeah, because who owns the properties in this village is also a topic and how many they own separately or individual. No, I didn't realize that. Because I know the other one you do own. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Village manager?
Thank you. So next, we have, I'm going to turn the rest of the meeting over to our corporation counsel. We're going to start with, a follow-up on the, electric vehicle, charging station local law, and then move on to, local laws, following up on, property maintenance, local laws. So with that, I will turn it over to Stuart for the next, 4 agenda items.
Thank you, Karen. I'll hold this, it's easier. On the electric vehicles, charging stations, first thanks to trustee Quezada, who spoke with Chair Garbowit. I also had a conversation, not a conversation, an email with him. Basically, if you'll recall, the question was, should there be an HPC review of the level 1, level 2, and level 3? Charging stations, if they are within historic districts or in a historic building. The chair's position was not necessary for levels 1 and 2, but yes for level 3.
I think that's what you said.
So the code has, the proposed law has been revised to just have a review, HPC review for level 3s. The likelihood of having a level 3 in one of the 2 zones or in one of the buildings is slim to none, because they're mainly going to be in commercial areas, which otherwise would not exist. And trustee Fritchie had asked that all locations with these either level 1, 2, or 3 have signage. So that has now been put into the local law that they will all have to have the signage with regard to that. So those 2 changes have been made in the proposed local law that's before you folks
Okay.
now.
That's, I think, actually the conclusion we all, didn't we draw this conclusion? That that's what was gonna happen? Is that something you said? I guess somebody, you said it, right? Okay,
In any event,
Makes sense.
So we can, on the 7th, we can call for a public
Great.
hearing on the 21st for that. So thank you.
okay.
Next is.
I'm sorry, Stuart, just before you go on. Do we also have to ask the board to send this to the planning board for their review?
Oh, thank you, Madeline. I'm.
Uh-oh, he's using your full name.
I'm in big trouble. I'm
Uh-oh.
gonna turn my mic off now. Good night.
It's like when I speak to my daughter and I say, Kimberly, you know that there's issues.
Although I feel like she brought up a good point.
That's, no. Well, as a 4th grade teacher, she knows what it means when she calls her students by their full name. Maddie's absolutely correct. Thank you, Maddie. On the 7th, we'll have a resolution to refer this to the planning board. It will go to the planning board at their September meeting. So we probably won't be back to you folks until sometime in early October for calling for a public hearing with regard to this, because it is a revision to the zoning code.
Okay.
Next, we have a further revision to chapter 162, which is our housing code. If you recall, last week, the board adopted a new chapter 92, which put in new enforcement procedures with regard to violations of essentially the housing code with regard to no building permit, no certificate of occupancy, operating permits and things like that. What this local law does is it essentially streamlines the process even more. Currently, we have articles in our code for exterior violations, interior violations. We have issues dealing with heating in the apartments and all like that. All of those sections are in the uniform code. They're all there now. So essentially what we've been working with is a duplicate system. So we often write orders to remedy with both sets of violations, which is not necessary. It's extra work for the court. It's extra work for our code enforcement officers. So I had lengthy conversations with both Building Inspector Agostinelli and Senior Code Enforcement Officer Gross. We went through each of the violations that is in the village code. We found essentially the analogous section in be it the property maintenance code, the building code, the existing building code, the plumbing code, fire code. And so what we're basically doing is repealing all of those articles that are in chapter 162. And we're keeping some parts of 162 that exist now dealing with, for example, commercial occupancy, which I'll go into in a moment because that's been changed. And what we've done is we've added one or two things which are in our code now, and the state code allows us to essentially have our own, which deals with issues like of automobiles that are parked, or motor vehicles that are parked on properties. We can put that in, and that's what's in here now. But what we've done, as I said, is for the most part, I guess it could be as many as 25 or 30 sections of the code dealing with village code violations, such as your siding is not on right, or all this. This is all in the state code. It's all there. So what we're going to be doing is, and what I've asked Joe to tell his people, is to start writing these as state code violations. All of our code enforcement officers are state certified, so they can write state code violations. And it will just make the process, as I said, easier, instead of basically putting both in. In addition, what this section or this new chapter 162, or the new chapter 162, we've revised the issue dealing with commercial occupancy licenses. As you recall, I believe back in 2017, 2018, the board approved a change to 162, requiring that if there was a change in commercial occupancy, a new business comes in, that person would have to get a license. Not something we charge for, but basically indicate that they are permitted to be at that location. It meets the zoning code violation, zoning code, it meets state code, whatever is necessary. And we've been getting those licenses issued. I mean, sometimes if we don't, they get issued in order to remedy, and they generally come in and they do it. The way that the section or the article is written now, it reads more like failure to get a building permit than failure to get an occupancy license. So it's been rewritten based in large part upon a local law that's from upstate, to essentially make it that, if you're just going in, and let's say it's a hair salon and it's a new business and it's just going to be a hair salon, all you have to do is essentially let the building inspector know, let him know that you're code compliant, and then you're off to the races. If you're changing the business, you have to show basically that you're a licensed business to do what you're doing. If you're actually changing the interior design, you're putting up new walls, or then you got to go through the building permit process, which is what you would have to do anyway. But this sort of makes it clear that if it's just essentially a swap of one business for another identical business, you can just come in, get your license, and you can walk away. The only fee that would be imposed is the fee for a building permit if you needed to get a building permit. But to essentially get the commercial occupancy license, currently there is no fee. It's in the code that it's written in here that if the board wanted to impose a fee, they could, but right now there is no fee in there. In addition, this new chapter will include the requirement that an agent must be designated by the applicant or building owner in the event that the building owner does not maintain a residence within Westchester County. There are also, we put in the penalties for offenses. Language with regard to warrants is in here. It appears in the other chapter 92. We also have a section that was in the prior article dealing with abandoned signs. We've lessened the amount of time that for a sign to be considered abandoned from 60 days down to 30 days. And that basically means that the business is not operating. It does not apply to seasonal businesses. So if it's somebody who's open for a particular period of time, that section would not apply in terms of being an abandoned sign. The requirement with the abandoned sign is basically that if it's a business that's abandoned, the owner of that business is obligated to take the sign down. And if they don't, the village can do it, and there will then be a process for which the village can ultimately put that amount on the person's tax bill, which is actually the next local law that we'll be talking about. As I mentioned, we talked about search warrants will be in there, and we have penalty violations. And last but not least, we did have a whole section we put in here which deals with basically presumptions in the event that there is no, and I'm just looking for it, if I can find it here. Give me 1 second, folks. So many things done all at the same time. But what we're doing is the current 162 has a section dealing with presumptions. Essentially, if you have 2 mailboxes, you're going to presume that it's 2 or more families live in the house. If you got 3 mailboxes, it's 3 or more. This becomes important because if it's a 2-family and there's 3 mailboxes, it's a presumption. And what that means is you can go into court and say, well, we can assume, Your Honor, that this is a 3-family or more than whatever. It is, however, a rebuttable presumption. So the other side can come in and say, I have the second mailbox because I have 2 kids who don't get along. So they each have their mail go into a separate mailbox, but we're just 1 family living at the address. As a parent of 2 children who are now older, I could actually see that being an answer being given. But essentially, what this whole 162 does is it revises from what we had before to put in something that, as I said, is simpler in the terms of commercial occupancy, makes it clear to an applicant exactly what they have to have. With regard to motor vehicles, the one thing that we have changed is we've now used the term inoperable motor vehicles, which is what is in the uniform code. We currently have essentially unregistered vehicles. The problem with that is we can't tell initially if it's registered or unregistered, but if it's inoperable, meaning it simply can't move, if that vehicle is parked on someone's property, that then can become a violation. The uniform code actually says you can have one of those vehicles, but the uniform code also says that with regard to that particular section, the locality can essentially pass a more stringent law. We have that on the books now, that you're not allowed to have any. But the difficulty that we've had is that some judges have said, well, it's not parked, it's just basically being stored. So this will cover all of that. And so if someone basically has a vehicle that has no tires on it, or it has nothing, or it's just basically rusting on the side, it's not being stored there. And even if it is being stored there, under this section, it would now be illegal. And there would be an order to remedy that could be issued, and the person could be directed to essentially remove the car. So that's what 162 the new 162, that proposed local law. So I'm happy to answer any questions that board members may have.
I'm gonna start from my right this time, since I did a bad job last time. Omar? Dana says she doesn't have any questions.
Just grateful. This is a lot of detail. Appreciate it. Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome, sir.
Sir?
Thanks, Stuart. A lot of work. I have no questions.
Manny?
Stuart, simplifying a lot of stuff, I think makes sense. I do have a question for you in regards to the time of an auto remedy right now under our village code. What is the time frame that you have?
30 days.
So that's not gonna change, because
No,
the
in fact,
state has the same process.
We actually, as you know, at one time, and in fact, it was a case that involved the village. We did not have a time limit we actually had a shorter time limit. Because what we said is, well, the state had never put any time limit in, so we could do it. The building department made that argument. They lost here, they lost in the appellate court. And after that, the state changed the code to make it 30 days. What you can do is 30 days to have it repaired, but you can also require that they start the work within 10 days. So what we're generally doing is doing that as well, but it will be 30 days.
So overgrowing. So now you give them 30 days to do the remedy with that, with a caveat of 10 days.
Well, two things with that, trustee. One, technically, an overgrowth under Chapter 88 does not require an OTR, because an OTR is only for essentially a code violation for housing or property maintenance.
But we are removing that section from our local
Well, no,
code, or that's staying, because some
80
of the stuff,
Chapter 88 is staying. But so in other words, when we write an overgrowth violation, that overgrowth is generally written under Chapter 88,
okay,
88, 10, and 11.
because the property maintenance has the same.
Right, it does.
Okay.
It does, but we have it there under 88.
Okay.
But ordinarily, what we would tell a person is, you got 30 days we want you to start within 10 days. You got 30 days to get it done. If it's not done under Chapter 88, we can then come in and do the work and basically charge you back through your
Okay.
taxes if you don't get it done. That's the same.
So that's still
with- no,
remaining. So that's
that
the
will remain,
question, because a
that-
lot of the stuff. is-
Right, that language
Yeah.
in 88 is not changing, so,
No.
and in fact, when the code folks write an order to remedy for an overgrowth, they're not basing it on the uniform code, they're going under Chapter 88,
Okay.
they're using the 88 language.
So taking into that one, so when you get, what code enforcement or building inspectors or assistant building inspectors gives a stop work order, which is a Chapter 168.
Mhm.
It's not as specific on which one or which violation of the code was done. Is it building a deck without a permit, building a porch, a portico, or doing an addition or changing the windows, so how specific are we gonna be getting this?
The SWO, the stop work order in particular, and in fact, I believe the property maintenance code makes it clear, has to indicate the section that was violated. In other words, what you have done incorrect. You're building a deck, or you put an extra room on, or so that's got to be on there. And the order that would go with that has to tell the person what he has to do to basically make the repair. In other words, what is the violation, so that they can repair it. The one thing that we try to be careful with the orders to remedy is to make it clear that it's not enough to just say you're in violation of this section. You have to indicate essentially what has to be done. But in the stop work order, it has to specifically indicate this is the section, this is what you were doing, so that repair can be made, at whatever particular time.
So, thank you. And if I may, I want to deviate a little bit of this, talking about stop work orders, and maybe Maddie can help or Karen can help. So right now, I've seen a couple stop work orders, which is helpful to see that, but I've seen them done by hand. Is that typically done by hand, Maddie? Karen?
As opposed to what? You mean printed on a, like a
Print it out on a piece
covered-
of paper and that kind of, is that what we're doing?
I don't have an answer for what is typically done. I don't know.
The ones that I've seen,
I seen
the
both.
term stop work order is printed,
Mhm.
and then it's written in
And
by the
by
code
the
enforcement officer, one with their signature and two, the specific nature of the violation. So I think that's what I've seen. So I don't know if we actually
That's what.
print a
that's what-
full SW with everything on it, but we have it, basically there's a template and then they fill out the rest of the stuff and then they
Which
post
is
it.
effective because you don't have to go back to the office and
Correct.
do it that way. So my question goes to, do we have tablets? I thought we did.
We do.
Patty?
We do.
do?
Yes.
So when a code enforcement writes a violation of something, and especially a stop work order, does it enter that into the system as well? And also writes the stop work order by hand and place it on someone's property?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So if I'm a code enforcement officer and I'm driving around and I see work being done that requires me to issue a stop work order, you're asking what is the process using the tablet to create that? Is that the question?
Yes and no. So to create obviously the stop work order, not sure, because as the steward mentioned, you have a template that the code enforcement is going to write down exactly the reasons why you're doing the stop work order.
Right.
What I'm asking is, do you enter that same information for that particular property into
I see.
Municity?
Yes, so it gets entered into Municity one way or the other. I know that with some media types, they've been having difficulty putting it in from the tablet and they have to wait till they get back to the office. But generally speaking, they can enter the information from the tablet. So I think, to your point more clearly, if they post the stop work order, is the information immediately in the Municity system? The answer is sometimes, but within an hour, the answer is yes.
Okay. So I thought at some point we were going to talk about printers, because that will be more efficient since that we have the technology. And at some point we did have printers on our cars so they can print out violations.
That's not something I think that's been discussed since I've been working with the team, but we have had a couple things come up.
I don't, I have to be honest, I don't.
We didn't buy
recall.
them,
I
we
mean,
don't
it's
have
something We
them.
could consider, but it's not
No,
something
no,
I
I was just
recall
asking because I
discussing, yeah.
know whether, anyway, so I was deviating
Okay.
from that. Just to
So,
bring that up.
sorry,
So
and the rest of the stuff,
on the rest of the stuff, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I think pretty much you're just eliminating a lot of the paperwork anyway, because when I used to see a violation, it was a whole stack of papers and they were literally just repetitive
Yeah.
of the same.
and
So
every time you have to do that, mistakes get made.
Correct.
So much
Yeah.
more efficient,
So
much
thank
more
you.
accurate. So it sounds great. The presumptive stuff, I know that we've been talking about this for a long time about, giving tools to be able to go into buildings, houses, whatever, right? And these are some of the tools, but I thought the other two presumptive that was brought up actually by a member of our community who no longer lives here was the discs on the buildings and the water, I'm sorry, dishes, which not everybody uses anymore because, technology has changed, but still. So it was the dishes and the water, the meters.
the meters,
The meters.
well, we have that section, we
The-
changed
right.
that.
But he
Yeah.
wasn't discussing in the presumptive.
There's a section in here dealing with water meters, electric meters, gas meters.
Thank you.
We didn't put dishes in because when
Yeah.
we did this
Mhm.
before, the prior board was of the view that, one house could have multiple dishes.
Yeah, 'cause they
So
don't
to
remove
do
it.
that, so therefore, just saying a presumption, if you got 3 dishes, that means you have more than at least 3 families live there, but it could be
Mhm.
more. We didn't go that route. That's also why we didn't necessarily go with, doorbells or things like that. But we kept it therefore to mailboxes, and gas meters, as well as some work internally in terms of partitions and things like
Right.
that. But I do recall the discussion from a few years back about dishes. And at that point, the board didn't want to go in that direction because one house could have multiple dishes.
But it's not the only presumptive. If you put that as part of portfolio, the inspector doesn't actually have to use it. They have the option of saying, hey, there are 6 of them. And that was the only reason additions. Many of the landlords say when tenants leave, they're supposed to take it down, but they don't. So you know, you end up, and then they have to go and do it. My point is, these are tools to be able to go in. So it doesn't have to be that all of these things are present and therefore you have to write somebody up. It's really, you could choose and say, hey, you know, they've got 4 mailboxes and 6 dishes, therefore, right? Because it's not like you have to do something about it. If you see it, it's a tool.
No, it's a tool and it, you know, if in, for example, we would want to get into a house and we can't get in, we can use the presumption to help us to get a warrant.
Which is why I would think a larger, a deeper portfolio presumption rules
I-
would help the officers, rather than fewer.
I have no
Because they just
problem.
have a wider portfolio, I would say.
There's no problem
So-
putting
so-
that in. We were.
And you and I were on that board at that time
Wasn't
and
that many years ago, but yeah.
so, and I was
remember
against, no,
this.
I was against that because I actually I did, my recollection is because, yes, you're right, they're supposed to be, that the company's supposed to be removed,
Mhm.
which they don't. So it kind of becomes, so, in concept, I guess so, I just don't agree with that. But anyway, so
But
to
you
your
agree with
point,
the fact that it's a tool to be used.
it could be a
doesn't have
tool,
to
yeah,
be.
it could be a tool, but
You don't
again,
have
the
to use it.
mailboxes is a tool, the meters is a tool, the
Yeah.
gas meters is a tool, so I think you have
You think
enough
there's
of
enough
that.
tools?
So the
Uh-huh.
other portion that I want to bring it up is the board is passing an inspection literally, request every 3 years.
Mhm.
That's the register for the
Yeah,
1 and 2
understood.
families. So I'm not sure, it'd be needed at that point because you are gonna be hitting pretty much, the hope is every single unit on the village, the
Right.
1 and 2 1 and 2 families. At
Right.
least the ones that are not owner,
I
occupied
totally-
itself. So
Yep.
I think putting more stuff is gonna be counterproductive in my
Okay.
opinion, because we already have a registered law that we're gonna be passing at some point of time, before the end of the year, then that will get you into those particular units that we.
I'm just interested in giving them more tools. And I actually don't see a downside to it. It doesn't slow the process down. It doesn't, it's simply like you could pass by and see 20 dishes, but say, all right, whatever. I don't need to go. I mean, these are
Well,
tools to accomplish something.
And there is
I don't
language,
see a downside.
and there is language in the article that two things. One, the property owner can actually ask the building department to come and inspect my house. I'll show you that I don't have X number of units. Or they can, and they can, as I said, they can rebut the presumption. So it's not,
Understood.
if we, that's right. So if the board is of a view that to put it in, it can be added in, just a few extra words to put in. It's not a problem. I just defer to the board as to if you want me to put it in.
Bob, I see you
Well, I
coming close to
just-
the mic.
Dishes are a thing of the past. Everybody's,
Nobody's-
even the
yeah.
dish platforms are streaming now.
Right.
So if
Oh.
they're there, they're probably,
Old.
excuse
They
me, probably old.
The landlord should probably take them off
Well,
anyway. 'cause
okay.
probably
Landlord
ruins
should do a
their-
lot of
Okay,
things,
I'll-
but-
then- Okay,
I'm just,
that's fine.
Just
I think
making a
you're right.
statement,
I'm just
that's all.
trying to give more tools. We're rewriting this whole thing. You might as well give the whole portfolio to the officers. Okay, it seems
Okay.
like the board is very happy with the
Okay.
streamlining, with redoing this. It's a lot of work, seems good.
So we'll,
I'm probably too
Uh,
far from the mic, seems
put-
good. It seems like we understand there was a lot of work that went into this. It gives the folks on staff tools, all good stuff.
okay,
Thank you.
we'll call for this one we can just go directly calling for a public hearing.
Great.
The next proposed local law is really more a procedural change. For many type of expenditures that the village has, when I'm talking expenditures, trustee Kazad asked before about overgrowth. Snow and ice is another example. We have procedures where if in fact the person doesn't do the work, the village can come in and do the work. And what our code provides is that if they get sent an invoice, and if they don't pay the invoice, it goes on their tax bill. The process has to be a little bit tighter to allow the individual who is essentially getting the invoice to appear before the board and say, I shouldn't have to pay this. We do this already with sidewalks. It's the same process we do with sidewalks now, which is that we basically, once we have the invoice from the contractor, or if it's village time, we basically then will send an invoice to that person, say this is going to be before the board on X date. You can come to the board and make your objections. If not, you have to pay within 30 days of the board making the
We
assessment.
don't make any of the changes until we send an invoice or to the person?
No,
I know,
the way we're gonna do it is if in the case of overgrowth, person does not clear it,
Right,
building inspector or DPW can basically arrange to have the work done. Work gets done, we get a bill. We will then send the bill to the property owner and say, this is going to be on for a hearing before the board on X date. And the board will decide what the assessment will be. Plan that you have to pay it within 30 days of the assessment, which will most likely be 30 days, within 30 days of that hearing. And then if they don't pay, then it goes directly onto their next tax bill. So that's how it would work. As I said, we already do this with sidewalks. And if person wants to object, they can object. But we're in almost all of the cases here, we've added a 20% administrative fee for the village. So if the village is doing, if we send it out to a contractor or for whatever paperwork, there's a 20% administrative fee that will be added in.
how many, do they get just an order to remedy or they get a warning first? How does this work?
Well, they will always get an order to remedy in terms of having to do the work initially. So be it snow and ice.
When do we go in and clear and do any of the work?
For the brush and grass, I believe we give them I think it's a 10-day notice to basically go out and get it done. And if they don't do it, then we
Then
can do the
go
work.
in and-
That's right.
Okay.
So that in each case, the property owner, occupant, tenant, whoever is the responsible party, is given notice that we're going to come in and we're going to do this work if you don't do it. And what the process has been in most cases has been after that, we get an invoice, we send the invoice out and we say to them, you don't pay it within 30 days, you're going to, it's going to go on your tax bill. The change now will be that instead of telling them you got to pay within 30 days, we're going to say you're going to have a hearing, and the hearing will probably be the next board meeting. But you'll have a hearing, you can come in, you can object if you wish to object. The board will decide the assessment, and at that point, you have 30 days to pay. If you don't pay within those 30 days, it goes on your tax bill. That's basically it. What this will be is it will make the procedure uniform through any time, in any method where we are going to collect past due expenses or expenditures. And again, 20% administrative cost will be added on.
Okay, I'm gonna start on my left. Bob, comments, questions? Sir?
Help me understand that assessment process. So let's say it's $500, we add that 20% to that. Is that the value of the assessment, or the board has the ability to raise that
Well,
additional?
The term assessment here is essentially the bill. It's not the tax assessment. In terms of what the board can do, the board, the way it's worded is this: if the property owner gets the invoice from us and gets told there's a hearing, but doesn't come in, you can't then assess at a higher number. So if the bill is $100, you can't say he owes 150. You could, if they come in, basically say, well, he doesn't know, you could lower the bill if you thought it was necessary to do that. And that bill then goes on to taxes, and it basically becomes part of the tax bill. So that's how that would work. So the term assessment is taken from what we do currently, how we word it for the sidewalks. It's basically a sidewalk assessment. We would be calling this basically.
Yeah, but we never usually lower the bill.
No, every time it's come before you, first of all, we've never had someone come in and object. But when it comes in, basically that same night, there's a resolution before you, essentially adopting that's what the number is.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Omar?
Good. Thank you, sir.
Data?
20% administrative fee, what is that for exactly? Like, what does that mean?
What it means is that if your invoice is $100, it would be $120, the $20 being for the work. And it's really not much if you think about it. The work that's going to be done by be it the building department, DPW, to arrange for the contractor to get them out, to send the invoices out, to send the notices out. So instead of just the flat invoice, it's essentially for time that is spent by those departments to do this work.
My feeling is that we don't want to do any of this. We want people to take care of their property. We want them to clean the sidewalks. We have too many absentee landlords who don't do what they're supposed to, and then you get 12 yards of ice, sheets of ice, that people can't walk on the sidewalk, even though everybody else did what they were supposed to. This is not even punitive. This is more like, listen, and it's a lot of work when you have to get a landscaper. If there's a lot of snow and ice, the people you need to contract are actually really busy. And that's exactly when they don't want to come and do this. So there's a lot of work involved. The whole point is we never want to fine anybody. We never want to send anybody an invoice. We never want to do any of this. We want people to take care of their properties in the first place. But for the characters, or I don't want to call them bad characters. Sometimes it's just something comes up and they're not able to do it. The absentee folks are probably the most of this. This is everyone, right? So this is nonprofits who own property. This is developers who are sitting on empty property, etc. Correct? The
Yes.
same rule applies to everybody. Whoever
Correct.
owns.
Mm.
Responsible for their property.
Right.
No matter who did whatever they did to it, they're responsible for it.
Right.
All right. I mean, I think to echo the folks, thank you. Sounds good.
Okay, have a resolution for hearing again.
Mhm.
Last we have, folks, is just a sort of a cleanup. As part of last week's adoption of Chapter 92, part of that involved a new permit, which would be a foundation permit. I'm here because we don't have a fee for it. I discussed this with the building inspector. His thought was that the fee for the foundation permit should be the same fee as we are charging for a building permit.
What's a foundation permit?
The foundation permit, I'll read it to you, I mean, directly from and this is out of the state code. The exact language. Okay, the foundation permit shall authorize the applicant to clear the project area and install sewers, drainage, utilities, the base course of roads and scheduled foundations in accordance with plans and specifications filed with the building department and Department of Public Works. No other work or construction can be permitted, authorized, or accomplished under a foundation permit. So it's just for that limited amount of work. And
We don't have that now?
we do not have a foundation permit now. We do not. I know the, Okay.
What's his justification for this?
the state has it in there because in the event that someone just wants to do this work before they come up with their full sets of plans to go before a planning board, they can put something in the ground. Now, if in fact we find, and the building department finds that this is not something that you want, it can come out. It's not required to be in the code. It's just part that the state was there. We do not have it at this point. The only exception that I am aware of was 78, where they were issued that permit years ago, as we know. But that's the idea of the foundation permit. In almost all cases in the village, it will be tied into a building permit. So basically one will get folded into the other, primarily because you don't want to be able to put a foundation in if you don't know what's going to go up on top.
And what was his thoughts as far as the fee?
His fear is that it should be the same as our building permit fee.
And what's his justification for that? Because it's not even a quarter of the job of what it would be.
I'm just,
I know, I'm
I'm not disagreeing with you, Trustee Fitzgerald.
What is the fee?
Fee
It's
counted
based
for the
on
building
square
permit
footage.
is,
What is the fee?
It's based on square footage, right? So it's not
Right.
like a building permit is a flat fee.
well, it's actually not, it's $12 per thousand up to $200,000. It's a minimum of $25, $10 per thousand over 200,000.
So
Right,
I'm breaking this down.
okay,
The foundation and the building is all one thing right now. And that's where your square footage, everything come in. So he wants it to be the same numbers or the same amount. That's not clear to me right now.
No,
Same
you're saying is it
formula.
double
The
counted?
square footage numbers, does he want that to be the same? So if I have 5,000 square feet of foundation to build, that is is he saying that his calculation numbers, he wants them the same? Or is he saying, well, if it's 100,000 for that permit, and then I gotta do 100,000 for the foundation?
That's what I was saying, that it's like double counting. 'Cause you get the foundation, then on top, and each is, let's say, 5,000. Why are you charging? It's 5,000, it should be 5, the whole
So
thing.
the foundation's a third of the job.
Yeah.
Right, so
what I'm
I
saying?
think, when I had my discussion with the building inspector, it should be the same fee. So we didn't go into, what you're suggesting now. I do understand the point.
Oh, right now,
Can we just get clarification on that? Because that was where I went to as well.
Why don't I do this? We can come back on August the 7th, when
With
we
an
have,
explanation.
with an explanation, and then we can make a decision at that point. Because even though the law will be in effect by that point, I don't expect that we're going to see a rush to have foundation permits suddenly being issued in this village.
So-
Trustee
so,
Quezada, sure.
Yeah, so and it's interesting because 34 State Street comes to mind. Okay, and they wanted to have a foundation
Right.
permit.
Yes, they did.
And we were advocate, even our building inspector was, we do not need to do this. It has to be tied in. So it kind of, it baffles me right now that that request is being put in front of us right now. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a foundation permit.
Are you saying,
No, no,
I just,
yeah.
I want to understand what you're saying. Are you saying that you would rather not have a foundation permit allowed? That it's just,
Correct.
because if you don't even have that allowed, forget what the amount of dollar is,
Yeah.
right? It's only if you're gonna build. You're not getting I mean, I know we made an exception, but are you arguing for no exceptions? There are no
No
foundation
exceptions.
permits.
Not at all.
No,
Not at all.
I agree, because.
So-
it's-
You're saying the same thing as
it's
he
like
is.
you're double dipping.
No,
No,
it's
you're
nothing
both
to do
saying
with it.
different
No, no,
things.
You're talking about the fee. I'm not talking about the fee. I don't care about the fee.
He's
What I
saying
care is like, I don't
No one
want a
should get
foundation.
foundation permit.
If you want to get a foundation permit, you better have a building on top of that foundation and get the whole thing at once.
It's not about the money is what
It's not about
Mandy's
the money.
saying.
No, but if you put, but it will be if we do.
If you do fees for foundation permits, let me say it differently so that I can understand it. If you do a permit and a fee, you are in fact de facto saying that we will consider and give foundation permits. What I'm hearing to my left here is we don't want to do foundations. We want construction, not foundations. So somebody can then, I guess, flip or don't want to do them. It doesn't matter what the fee is. We simply don't want to do foundation permits. Am I repeating this correctly or incorrectly?
I don't want, yeah,
Well,
I don't want the
both saying
option.
the
Yeah, I
same
want the
thing.
option to
Okay.
have that. Because again, so if
So
we
therefore,
would-
we would set a fee because we don't even want the permit as a viable option. I think that's what's being said to my left.
Understood. And if the sense of the board
I didn't
is,
get to this side yet, but.
no, but
okay.
if the sense of two of, if the sense of two of the five, and if it's a view of the majority, that can come out of the local law. I'm just making that point. Again, we've never had it before. Again, the only other time I think it was ever done was 70A. And we know where that went. So, if the board doesn't want it, we don't have to do it. I mean, it can come out is what I'm basically
And I'm
saying.
saying to add to that, now that I've been educated a little bit and I sort of am beginning to understand it, it almost feels, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, that they wanted codified that you can't give foundation permits.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't have something, that means you just don't have it. That means somebody can come in and ask for it. If you codify that you can't, that we're interested in construction, not in foundations, then they would have to come in front of the board in order to get permission.
Not even, no, they don't come in front of the board. They go, they,
Oh,
so they go
go
straight,
to
they
zone-
go to, no, they go
to-
straight to the building department and can get a permit.
Not if you codify that there are no foundation permits.
Yeah, of
allowed.
course, and then they have to go through the whole process.
Well,
It's
that's-
a
that's-
typical process.
So-
It's back to the regular process.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all
So
one,
is that
it's
what you
all
guys
under
are
one,
saying?
it's all under one blanket, one permit.
Okay.
So I just under the prior code, we had no reference to foundation permits. So if someone came in and asked for one, The response in the building department is, we don't issue them because we don't have them.
Right.
So we want to go back, so we want that. We don't want to discuss fees. That's what you guys are arguing for. Everybody got that? So folks on this side, I agree with you, by the way, and yes, that makes us 3 votes, but that's not the point. The point is we have to be in agreement because this is a big project. We want to be listening, a lot of work went into this.
Yeah. I agree. I
You
agree.
agree, Dana? All right, so
So
you
what
got the
we'll do is-
direction on that?
So what we'll do with regard to that, since that local
That
law
one
was
topic, yeah.
adopted, we'll put it together a resolution again, or the 7th, we'll just do it to take that one section out on the, so
Sorry,
therefore,
I didn't-
there won't
I
be
didn't
any,
get down.
no,
I
that'll come out.
apologize.
And that way, there's
Right.
no issue
But
about.
this
the
is
fee.
why we have these conversations, sometimes you don't get it on the first time, you get it when you see it like live and in color. Okay, what else we got?
Me, nothing else, at least in main session.
That's it? Okay. Oh, that was the foundation. Got it. Short meeting. Okay, so this concludes our meeting. I see nobody put my little friendly gavel. I'll have to use my hand. Oh, and no nameplates. We usually don't do nameplates even in business.
Locked up and we can't get.
Oh, I just noticed it at the end of the meeting, like when this is recorded, nobody's gonna know who we are. Oh, man, I just like noticed it.
We have executive session.
Yeah, we have it.
on real property and litigation and
Yes.
also advice of
All
counsel.
right, so ladies and gentlemen, 9/11, we will see you next Wednesday.
So
Do we
moved.
have? No, on
August 7th.
August 7th. Thank you. I knew it
So
wasn't next.
move, someone needs a
And-
second. Thanks.
Okay, have a very nice rest of the evening. No, it's a 5th.